It's me, thinking out loud. I've been sitting with something since my last reflection on AI music. And the more I've thought about it, the more I've realized I may have been asking the wrong question. Or maybe not the wrong question exactly, but an incomplete one. I was so focused on the fact that the singer wasn't real in the way I expected her to be. There was no woman standing behind that voice, no tour dates, no concert venue, no person I could fly somewhere to see perform. And that part is still true. But then another thought started bothering me. Just because the singer wasn't human, does that mean there wasn't a human artist behind the music? I think I moved past that question too quickly. When I found out the voice was AI generated, I treated the entire song as though it had appeared out of nowhere, as though a machine had simply reached into some digital universe, created a feeling, wrapped it in music, and sent it out into the world. But somebody had to start it. Somebody had to want that song to exist. Somebody had to choose the subject, the mood, the style, the words, or at least some of the words. Somebody listened to what came back and decided, no, that's not it. Or, yes, that's the one. And I don't know how much human involvement was behind the particular songs I heard. I don't know whether someone wrote every lyric themselves or gave the system a simple idea and let it build from there. I don't know. But I do know that calling something AI generated can make the human disappear from the story before we even know whether the human was actually absent. And that has made me rethink the whole thing. What if the person behind the song had been carrying those words for years? What if they had notebooks filled with lyrics? What if they heard melodies in their head but could never get them out in a way anyone else could hear? What if they had always wanted to sing but couldn't carry a note? That part caught me. Because there are people who feel music deeply but don't have what we traditionally call musical talent. They can't sing, they don't play an instrument, they don't know how to arrange a song, they don't have access to musicians, producers, recording studios, or the money it might take to turn an idea into something polished enough for other people to hear. But that doesn't mean they have nothing to say. It doesn't mean they don't have emotion. It doesn't mean they don't have a story. It may simply mean they never had the delivery system. And maybe AI becomes just that, the delivery system. That is a very different way of looking at it. Because then AI isn't necessarily replacing the artist. Maybe it is allowing the artist to finally show up, not physically, not as the voice we hear, but through the words, the choices, the emotion, and the intention behind the song. Maybe the synthetic voice is not the artist at all. Maybe it is the instrument. Where does the emotion come from? That raises another question for me. Why have we decided that the person singing has to be the person who created the emotion? That has never always been true in music. A singer can perform words written by someone else. A songwriter can create something deeply personal and hand it to another person to sing. A producer can shape the sound. Musicians can add their own interpretation. The person whose voice reaches us may be only one part of a much larger creative process. So, why does AI complicate the process? Because it didn't invent the idea. Still, this feels different because a human singer brings something of themselves into the performance, their breath, their history, their phrasing. their own emotional interpretation. But an AI voice doesn't have that lived experience. It doesn't remember the heartbreak in the lyrics. It doesn't know what the coffee tasted like that morning. It doesn't believe in Jesus. It doesn't feel tired, hopeful, lonely, grateful, or relieved. But the person directing it might, the person writing the words might, the person listening to 20 different versions and choosing the one that finally sounds like what they felt inside might. So, where does the art actually live? Is it in the throat? Is it in the words? Is it in the emotion that started the song? Is it in the final sound? Or is it somewhere in the relationship between all of those things? AI as an alter ego. I keep coming back to this idea of an alter ego. What if AI gives someone the ability to become the performer they could never physically be? They create a voice that carries the range they don't have. They create a persona that can stand on the stage they may never feel comfortable standing on. They can finally hear their words expressed the way they always imagined them. Is that fake? I'm not sure it is. Maybe it is constructed. Maybe it is synthetic. But constructed and meaningless are not the same thing. And synthetic does not automatically mean there was no human truth inside it. If I write the words, if the emotion belongs to me, if the story came from something I lived, if I choose how it should feel, how it should move, where it should rise, and where it should soften, and AI gives that expression a voice, whose song is it? I think part of my discomfort comes from the way we are used to attaching art to a visible person. We want the face. We want the backstory. We want the interview where the singer tells us what happened in her life that led to the song. We want to believe the voice came directly through someone's body and carried a piece of their history with it. And when that person isn't there, it can feel like something has been taken away. But maybe sometimes we are looking for the human in the wrong place. Maybe the human is not in the voice. Maybe the human is in the reason the song exists. That thought makes the experience feel different to me. Not settled, not automatically better, just different. Because I can still see the other side of it. Someone could type a vague sentence into a system, accept the first song it produces, put a name on it, and release it. That is possible too. And I don't experience that as the same thing as someone bringing their own words, their own memories, and their own emotional direction into the process. Both may get labeled AI music, but I don't think they are creatively identical. One may be mostly generation, the other may be expression made possible through technology. And maybe that distinction matters more to me than whether the final voice came from a human. I find myself thinking about people who have been told all their lives that they cannot sing. People who write beautifully, but have never considered themselves artists because they could not perform. People who have always had something inside them, but no practical way to give it form. What happens when the limitation disappears? What happens when the voice they could never carry becomes available? Maybe AI becomes a mask. Maybe it becomes an instrument. Maybe it becomes an alter ego. Maybe it becomes the bridge between what someone feels and what the rest of us finally get to hear. And then I think about my own response to the music. I wasn't moved by a machine because a machine had feelings. I may have been moved because a human feeling found a new way to reach me. I don't know that for certain. I still don't know who wrote the words, how much direction they gave, or how much of the final song came from deliberate human choices. But I'm less comfortable now saying that the song had no human behind it. Maybe the performer wasn't human. Maybe the voice wasn't human. But perhaps the need to create it was. And maybe the artist was there all along, just not where I expected to find them. Yeah, I'm still thinking out loud.